Are you familiar with the term reframing when it comes to storytelling? And did you know that learning how to reframe can have tremendous benefits on our mental health and well-being? Well, in today's episode, we are going to be discussing reframing, what it is, its benefits, and how you can begin doing it right away. Welcome to the Journey to Legacy show. I'm your host, Joanna Klein. I am the creator and facilitator of an online life story writing course for people in their third act called Journey to Legacy. So one of the things that I love about life story writing is that it allows us to look back on our life and look in particular at some of our more painful memories and find a new way of looking at them, a way that brings us peace and a way that lets us let go of some of the pain that we've been carrying around them. So whether or not it's guilt around something that maybe a way that remembering a time when you yelled at your child, or a regret that you have that you didn't take a job opportunity that was offered to you, or maybe it's some anger or even anger, let's say, towards someone who has caused you pain. Well, through life story writing, we are able to slow down and really kind of bring out the magnifying glass and look at those stories in a new way. So from another vantage point. So what we often don't realize is that we are the authors of our own stories, and we have a choice on how we want to remember and retell them. So we are the authors of our own story, and we have a choice in how we remember and want to tell them. So the facts don't change when we are looking at something that's happened in the past, but the way that we interpret those facts can have a huge impact on how we feel about our life. So think about the expression, the glass half empty or half full. What does that mean? We have a glass and there's liquid in it that fills up half the glass. If someone thinks the glass is half empty, then they're looking at it from a more, let's say, negative perspective. But if they see that glass as half full, then they're bringing a more positive perspective to the same exact set of facts. Well, we can do that with our life stories as well. So reframing is the process of looking back at our memories, looking back at the facts of our life, and particularly focusing in on the more painful events as we remember them, and then making a decision to look at them differently. So if we have a story that we tend to tell or tend to remember about a time in our life, and we're remembering it more from the glass half empty perspective, then reframing would mean we tell that same story, but from the perspective of the glass half full. All right. So we don't have to continue viewing something in a particular frame. I mean, oftentimes usually, in fact, we give an interpretation to what's happened in our life as soon as it happens. I mean, we bring a meaning to it right away. For example, I was hiking with a girlfriend the other day, and she has a set of friends from college years ago. They meet every year, and it's a group of them, about 6 of them, and they become a close-knit group, and they really enjoy their time together, and they find a place to stay throughout. They travel all around the world, and we'll go and stay there for 5 days together. Well, the husband of one of the girls, women in that group, passed away. And so they're having, there's going to be a celebration of life for this man. And my friend decided she wanted to go. Well, when she started connecting with the other women in the group, she found out that several of them had already paired up. One was going to go stay with one woman at her house. It was not too far from the event. Another woman was going to go stay with a second woman in the group. And my friend interpreted that immediately to mean that she was somehow getting excluded, that they had forgotten about her. When she pursued the situation a little bit further, when she dug in a little bit deeper, then she realized that she had failed to follow some of the instructions of RSVPing that was in an email about the event, that she had missed that. And so there was an assumption that she wasn't going to be coming. So as soon as she let them all know she was going to be coming, then things got shuffled around. They immediately made space for her. But her first interpretation of what was going on, the way that the women were going to be pairing up and visiting together for that celebration of life, she was looking at it from the glass half empty perspective. So we tend to do that. Our brains are in fact, our brains are wired to look at things from a negative perspective. It's how we have been programmed since we were in the caveman days, when the people needed to go out and be prepared for danger happening. We needed to be on the alert. So our brains are set to look at things from a more negative, fearful perspective. So we need to be mindful. We need to make the decision that we aren't going to do that. We have to stretch our brain. We have to notice it, and then we have to decide we're going to turn things around. So there's some real benefits to changing perspective, to reframing our stories. The first one is inner peace. We feel all of a sudden that all is well when we bring some kind of sense to the story, when we're able to let go of the angst, let go of the pain, let go of the hurt, and start seeing it from more of what I consider a bird's eye view. We take a step back, we detach from the story and start looking at it from other perspectives. And that brings inner peace. It brings clarity, and life starts making sense in a new kind of way. Another benefit from learning to reframe our story is forgiveness. We get to forgive ourselves. We get to forgive others. There's active forgiveness and there's passive forgiveness. And active forgiveness is where we are allowing ourselves to fully forgive and express forgiveness. Passive is maybe when it's just between our heart and the page as we're writing it down. But we recognize, and we don't necessarily send our story or contact the person that we're forgiving and tell them that we are forgiving them, but we are just able to do that in our own hearts. For example, one of the members of my Journey to Legacy team was sharing how when she grew up, her parents were very young when they had her. She was the oldest. Her father was 22, her mother was 20. And for so many years, she carried these stories about neglect from her parents. They were so young, they were out partying. They would leave her with cousins to take care of her, young cousins to take care of her. And so she had stories of neglect. But once she had her own children at a much later age than 20 and 22, and she started realizing, wow, her parents were so young when they had her. And she, at the age of 20 or 22, would have been in no condition to be a attentive and present parent. And when she put herself in their shoes and recognized that that was a very young age to be having children, that she started to be able to appreciate what they did do well. And she started to be able to forgive them. So there's a form of passive forgiveness where she didn't need to reach out to her parents and say anything, but it just brought peace for herself. Now, I hear stories about forgiveness and coming to peace from my Journey to Legacy clients all the time, where they might be reflecting back on a divorce or on a difficult business situation that they went through, or maybe a challenging relationship that they're still holding some pain around. And through this process of reframing, looking for another perspective, maybe looking at it from the other person's perspective, or recognizing and having forgiveness and self-compassion, self-forgiveness and self-compassion when they think about all the decisions that they did make well, and the lessons that they did learn from that more difficult experience. Well, then they're able to come to this place of peace and this place of well-being as a result of making that decision to examine the stories from a new perspective. So what does it take then? How do we go about making a choice to reframe our stories? How do we choose to have more positive memories? How can we do that with intention? Well, I'm going to go over 6 steps for you right now. And I'll even share an example of my own situation of like what it is, how it is that I have handled it with giving these examples. So the first step is to slow down. I've mentioned that already. It's a decision that I want to take a look at a story, and I'm going to do it from a very peaceful, grounded place. Now, I highly recommend writing it down. The process of writing brings clarity. It gets it out of our heads, sometimes swirling around. It presents a new way of writing down the story and allowing us to examine it more thoroughly when it's written down or typed, somehow taken out of our head and put on the page. So number 1 is making that decision to slow down. Now, secondly, then, here's a question. Here's a prompt for you that I want you to fill in the blank. Uncomfortable feelings come up for me whenever I think about blank. Okay, so this should be a specific event, and maybe there's a person that's part of that event, but uncomfortable feelings come up for me whenever I think about blank. So for me, I would say uncomfortable feelings come up for me whenever I remember my dad during my childhood, my dad yelling at me, during my childhood. So uncomfortable feelings come up for me when I remember my dad yelling at me during my childhood. So the next question is another prompt. I get uncomfortable when I think about this because I tell myself that I get uncomfortable when I think about this because I tell myself that Now for me, I would say I get uncomfortable when I think about this because I tell myself I was gypped out of getting a kind dad, that I lived in a lot of tension, that I didn't have a carefree childhood at home because my dad was carrying so much anger. So that's why I get uncomfortable about it. It's like it's because of what I felt like, how it impacted me, and how I experienced that situation. It's like I felt like I was unimportant. I felt like I didn't matter. I felt like I wasn't seen when I'm remembering that situation. Now, here's an important next step. Ask yourself, what you just told yourself, is that 100% true? Is it without a doubt 100% true? So was I never seen? No. Was I gypped out of a happy childhood? No, I have a lot of happy memories. Was I unsafe at any point? No, I was never unsafe. I was uncomfortable. Was my childhood all that? No. I have other moments. There are other times when I can remember happiness, when I can remember play, when I can remember having fun. I can even remember having some good times with my dad at some point. So no, it's not 100% true. So then the next question is there another way of looking at this story? Is there a way of bringing, here's the same situation, my dad yelling at me, but what else can I bring to this? So for me, it's looking at my dad and saying, this is a man who had a very difficult childhood. He lost his mom when he was 5 months old. He was sent to foster homes. He was beaten. He never had the opportunity to feel loved as a young child. He never had the opportunity to feel belonging. So he didn't even have the opportunity to live in a home where his dad was yelling. So here's someone who's very wounded and he's being a parent. And so he's bringing his own wounds to it. So that's a way that I can have compassion for him. And I can also look at what it is I just mentioned in terms of, is this, when I ask the question, is this 100% true? I can also come back to those memories of the good times that I had with him, of the times that he would take me around the neighborhood on his shoulders. It was before he injured his back. He was in an automobile accident when I was 5 years old. And so he wasn't able to carry me anymore after that. And I think he got even crankier. I think that probably that pain that he had even had more of an impact on how he showed up than already his difficult past. So I can reframe that and remember some of the good times. I can remember my dad's own situation. And I can say, from that experience, there was some takeaways for me. There were some good things. And so that comes to the next question. And what did I learn from this experience? What strengths did I develop as a result of this? Well, for me, it was learning about parenting. When I look back at that with pain around the anxiety that my dad had, the yelling, then it's a choice that I've made of not wanting to bring that into my parenting. It's my desire to make sure my daughter feels seen. It's my desire to make sure that I've been present with her as best I can. Now, I haven't been 100% perfect in that, but I sure went about it with intention, did not want to bring that same kind of pain and discomfort to my role as a parent. And then the very last question then is, how do I feel after coming up with a reframe? How do I feel? So now that I look back at that situation, I have less charge. After going through that process and I've reframed that story, and now I can even write a story maybe about my dad's, what I know about my dad. I can write a story about what I do remember was positive things about my relationship with my dad. I can write a story about walking around the neighborhood with being on his shoulders and how much I enjoyed that. So it opens us up to being able to bring in gratitude, bring in forgiveness, bring in compassion, and have less painful charge, and maybe even no painful charge around a particular story. So once again, let me go through those steps with you. First of all, slow down. Slow down long enough so that you can write the story, and just make time so that you can do that. Number 2, follow this prompt. Uncomfortable feelings come up for me whenever I think about blank. And that blank is a situation, it's an event that could or may not involve someone else. Number 3, I get uncomfortable when I think about this because I tell myself that something about yourself, not about the other person, but you're telling yourself something about yourself. Next question. Ask yourself if this is 100% true. Is what you're telling yourself about yourself 100% true? And then next, is there another way of looking at this story? Can you reframe it? same facts, but what's another way of looking at it? And maybe you're looking at it from the perspective of the other person in it. Maybe you're looking at it from your own perspective. What else can you see? Take that bird's eye view. Next, what did I learn from this experience? What strengths developed as a result? And then finally, how do I feel after coming up with a reframe? I hope that has been helpful for you. I look forward to seeing you next time on Journey to Legacy. Have a great week.